Hey, this is Barry Smith, the country kid, and you're listening to the Northern Report.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, friends. Welcome to another installment of the Northern Report podcast. I am your host, Sean Burns, coming right at you from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Season 3 of the show here in full swing. And it's been about a month or so since we released an episode. But thanks for tuning in to the first 2 episodes of the season with Paul Langlois from the Tragically Hip and Paul Weber from Maryhill, Ontario, Canadian country music legend. On the program today, we've got another country music singer and songwriter, Mr. Barry Smith. Barry Smith fits this lost country thing to a T. And you're going to hear all about his life and career in country music. It's very rare that I run across someone with the same love and appreciation for country music deep in their hearts as I have here with Barry Smith. A couple little things to remind you about here before the year closes out. This Thursday, December 21st, at the Times Changed High and Lonesome Club, right down there, just right down there at 234 Main Street in downtown Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. We're going to be hosting the Lost Country Christmas Special. It is not about Christmas songs. It is about giving. 75% of all ticket sales are going directly to the Main Street Project here in downtown Winnipeg. We will be collecting non-perishable items and donations for the good people at Harvest Manitoba. We'll have a Lost Country merch package for the best/worst dressed patron at the Times Change that night. So slap on your horrifically ugly sweater and come on down to the Times Change. We're going to be leaning into the Christmas spirit visually, but not so much in the audio sense of the term. New Year's Eve, Sunday, December 31st, I'll be at the John Osborne ANAF number 1 down there at the corner of Empress and Ellis in Winnipeg. And I'll have the alternate 4-piece version of Lost Country with Chris Dunn and Joanna Miller, Dan Russell and I, ringing in the new year, playing some country music. So, expect the LC3 to bring home the Christmas cheer and Lost Country to ring in the new year. I think that's just about it. That's just about all I got for you. I've been getting slowly caught up after spending all of November on tour, and went down to Vegas for the NFR with Corby and came back with just a horrible sickness that I'm just beating right now. So I'm going to shut up. And let's welcome him to the program. I've recorded 2 of his songs now over the last 10 years. The most recent one, Alone Again, featured on my new record, Lost Country, which is available everywhere you are streaming and stealing and supporting. Folks, it's my pleasure to have Barry Smith as our guest today on the Northern Report. Barry Smith burst onto what was left of Toronto's honky-tonk and country music scene in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Recorded for Boot Records, his debut album, The Country Kid, produced by the great Chef Adams, was released in 1990. He followed it up with a stellar, self-titled cassette, Barry Smith and the Inner City Outlaws, recorded by our mutual good friend Ralph MacDonald at the former Zoo Studios in Toronto's East End. Barry was a breath of fresh air at a time when the airwaves and A-rooms were dominated by compressed electric guitars, 5-string bass, rock and roll drums, and assholes in hats, all fabricated by the music business scum on Music Row in Nashville. I suppose Alan Jackson is the best of a bad situation, and I'm sorry, folks, but that's just not enough for me. But Barry was out there, a small crop of singers and pickers, writing and performing genuine, bona fide honky-tonk and country music. He came by it honestly and has a deep love and appreciation for country music. In the years since the two previously mentioned releases, Barry has continued to write, record, and perform country music when his schedule permits. It was a pleasure to have him on the show and catch up with him on the phone recently, and I'll let Barry tell you the rest of his story. Friends, let's welcome him to the Northern Report podcast. Country music singer and songwriter, Barry Smith.
So, everything's going good. The family's good.
Where do you live now?
So, Rayborough, it's just 10 minutes south of Lindsay, Ontario.
Oh, it's a nice part of Ontario.
Yeah, and we're like on a farm, and it's out in the boonies, and it's really nice here. So we're happy.
Where did you grow up?
So Toronto. I grew up in Toronto, and then back and forth from my mom to my dad's. My mom was in Mississauga, so I lived in Mississauga back and forth with my dad and my mom, and then from Toronto, I got married in Toronto, and we had a baby, and we moved to Curtis, and then from Curtis, Bowmanville, and then Bowmanville to here.
Shit. So, but when you were most active playing music, that would have been in your days in Toronto?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
But live stuff, yes, in Toronto.
How did you even get into it, man? Like, were you playing when you were a kid and stuff?
You know what? My dad got me a guitar. There was always a guitar in the house, and my dad got me a real nice guitar, and I think the first song I ever learned was Folsom Prison, bow, 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 bow. That's the first notes I ever learned on a guitar was Johnny Cash's Folsom Prison. So,
like, how old were you at this point?
Oh, yeah. So I probably was 8 or 9 years old, maybe
shit.
10.
Really?
Yeah. And then just learned all the chords, and I don't even know how I learned all the chords. I had an Uncle Dave, and I think he showed me quite a bit of stuff, but pretty much picked it up naturally. I don't read music or anything like that, but just play the chords, and grew up listening to country music from my dad.
That's how it happened. I was going to just ask you that if it was someone in the house, or did how else do you find it really when you're that age?
My dad was a partier, and he always had Waylon Jennings albums, literally vinyl albums around with a turntable, George Jones and Waylon Jennings and Marty Robbins and the list goes on and on, Willie Nelson. So I grew up listening to all of that country music, and just it's in my soul. Like, the musicians on these recordings are just incredible.
I feel the same way, and I smiled so big when you said that, man, because I don't get to talk to too many people that feel that way about it, like that I do too.
Oh, of course, yeah, and it's only because of my dad that I actually just adore how good the musicians are, and where all the instruments fit in at the right times with the songs and stuff, and of course the bass guitar. I don't know what it is, man. There's something about country music that is just incredibly satisfying as far as the music it goes, man. The recordings, and then you can talk about the voices like George Jones, and holy smokes, man! Every song he sang the guy's voice was incredible.
Man, I put Ray Price and Merle Haggard with Frank Sinatra.
Absolutely.
I really do believe that, and you could make cases for George Jones and Lefty Frizzell and all these people that had really distinct voices. Everyone, it seemed like the players and the singers, really, it was their aim to have their own distinct voice and sound. Even because so often they're doing the same songs, like covering the same songs, sometimes the same year.
Right.
But everyone had their own way. So you said like mid late 70s, your dad was a bit of a rounder. That's prime 6-nighter territory in Toronto. Like, there would have been bands everywhere. Was he going out and hearing the live music?
Yeah, I think mostly he went to see like Roy Payne, Canadian legend Roy Payne,
the greatest.
He was friends with Roy and go out to all the shows and see him at the bars, of course, and then there's the Newfoundlander bar. My dad knew Dick Nolan, and I actually wrote a song and recorded it in Nashville, a song about the legend of Dick Nolan, it's called, and hung out with Dick quite a bit as well. And that was in my younger years, and just growing up with those guys. Absolutely loved Roy Payne's original music, just incredible songs.
I truly think he's one of the greatest Canadian songwriters, and there's some of his tunes are up there with the big Canadian songs for me, like the Gordon Lightfoot, Ian Tyson, etc. You know, like it's, and those first two records are mind blowing to me as far as country music goes. Like that's like 68, 1970 ish.
I agree. 100%. He should have gotten definitely more recognition. I mean, I wouldn't take $1 million for a single Maple Leaf. It's got to be one of the best Canadian songs ever written, but I don't think it got as much recognition as it should have.
He was a bit of a wild man, though, right? By all accounts.
I think that's what it was.
But such a great writer. And, you know, man, I tried to track that guy down for like 2 years. Roy Payne is the reason I wanted to interview people. I wanted to talk to Roy. My dad played with him for about a year in the late 70s. There's probably no way he would remember. But, like, I just wanted to talk to him about, because Roy Payne #2, that second record that Mickey McGivern's playing guitar on, is like the first one I heard. He's got Hometown Boys and some of those tunes that he wrote that were Pal of Mine. There's just great songs, and then the covers and stuff. But I was trying to find him, and then I heard he was living in like Marmara or something like that. And then I heard he's in the hospital, and then he was fine. And then someone told me that she could put me in touch with him, and she didn't. And then Dennis Conn told me he's at I think he's at Sunnyvale in Toronto in the Veterans Ward. He's totally healthy and cool, but he's just living there.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that. Yeah.
And I know Dennis had gone to see him, and then he gave me his phone number, and, you know, he knows I'm looking for him, but he didn't answer, and he didn't call me back, and I don't know if I should bug him again, but I'd really love to talk to him. Like, you got to hang out with Roy?
Not me personally. I did go see him a couple of times, but my dad hung out with him.
Okay. But you got to hang with Dick Nolan?
Yep, definitely hung out with Dick Nolan quite a bit and went to his shows, and we'd get up on stage with him and sing songs, and we're especially like Marie's Place. That was a little tiny joint on Kennedy Road, and it was just the smallest place, but Dick Nolan played in there quite a lot, and the place was always packed, so it became quite a familiar place for lots of newfies and just people to go in and drink beer. So, I think I cut my teeth on going up on stage, shy as heck at the age of 19 or 20 or something. And Dick would say, okay, you go up and play a couple songs. I'm going to take a break. So that was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun.
So this is all this was happening, and you were kind of growing up East End Toronto, like pretty far east?
Yeah, Birchmount area, Ellesmere area, Kennedy Ellesmere area.
Okay.
That's So and I guess I got introduced to those guys through my dad, right? So he would go out to the bars, and then of course quite the party animal, come home, and man, when I learned how to play guitar and I was a teenager, my dad would come home at 2 a.m, blasted, and wake me up out of bed to play him songs. Yeah, man, play songs on the acoustic, like country music songs. So that happened more than once. He was a funny character, or it still is, but that's those are memories that I have. Some really good memories as far as country music goes.
Do you know, like, if in the 60s and 70s, say, if Dick Nolan was playing in bigger bars further downtown, and then he ended up in the east part of Toronto where there was more maritime folks, or do you think he was always playing in those bars?
Yeah, I think he might have done the Birchmount a couple of times, which was a decent-sized bar back when I was younger. He might have done those, but I think for the most part, I mean, huge following in Newfoundland and great albums. He's got a lot of great albums, Dick, but as far as again, probably should be recognized a lot more than what he was.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I think he played mostly the small clubs and whatnot. But I think he was a lot bigger in Newfoundland. He was a legend there. So
I don't know if people in Toronto these days understand what it was like in the 60s and 70s and even into the 80s as far as real country music was concerned, and also how large of a population of maritime folks were there and listening to those songs, from those guys.
it was a popular thing back then. They had some pretty decent sized bars. I can't remember the one in the Golden Mile Plaza, but the name of it. But it was pretty big, and Dick and Roy and all those guys, and all different. Derek Pilgrim's another guy
Oh, yeah.
who's still kicking around and playing. But all these guys played in this. In I think it was at Kennedy. Warden and Eglinton. I was around where the Golden Mile Plaza was, but it was a fairly big place. Geez, it's just on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember the name of it. But it held an awful lot of people, and there was those guys played in there quite a bit as well, and then there's the Corral that came along a little later on the Corral, but that was a big country place too. It had held a lot of people. It's not there now.
So you start playing when you're young and you're learning all the country hits and all the stuff that you like, and then do you start a band at some point as a teenager? Like, how did that look for you? What's your first outfit?
Yeah, so I guess when I was around 22, I don't even know how it first happened, but I ended up playing with an acoustic guitar and a drum machine in small pubs, and just set the drum machine up and play all the old country songs. I did that for quite a long time before I got a full band going. It was just me and an acoustic, and we played in Pickering and Toronto and Brampton and Acton and all kinds of different places. Or I played there, and then eventually, geez, how did the first band come about? You know what, Sean? It's terrible that I don't remember, man. But definitely ended up with a band. I met a guy named Ben Haynes, and we started recording on a little 4-track, a lot of the songs that that I have written, and we started recording on a 4-track at his house. And so I guess he was a bit of an inspiration as well to get a band together, and we ended up playing the Soho Tavern. And oh man, funny story, we used to play the Soho from 9 to 1 and then rush down, and Dennis Conn knows about this, and I think he was on a few gigs, and Bill Ritchie was on a few gigs with us, and we would play 9 to 1 at the Soho. I'm about 26 at this point, and we'd pack up the gear, partying at the Soho, pack up the gear after playing for 4 hours, and rush down to the Matador and play from 2 to 5 at the Matador club downtown Toronto with Ann Dunn, and that was quite a fun time in our lives for sure.
So were you doing 6-nighters in those days, or is it like 2 or 3-nighters?
Yeah, I think there's a bar on the Danforth. We used to do 5 nights and maybe get paid a couple of $100, or I might have been 6 nights, and I think maybe a Sunday matinee as well. But we would get I would owe the bar money. Well, most times when I was playing, I would owe the bar money after I got paid at the end of the gig from just partying and buying friends drinks and having such a good time. But was it the Crossroads then? Maybe it was called the Crossroads, and we used to we would play there. Yeah, you'd go in there 6-nighters, and you'd be playing most nights to 2 people.
Really? The weekend, not busy till the weekend kind of thing.
Right, not busy till the weekend.
Well, so can you just to go back for a sec, can you tell me about the Matador? Because I've heard a lot about it in my life, a little from my dad and a whole bunch more from Ralph McDonald. But so the Matador was an after-hours club.
It was an after-hours club. Apparently, there was a lot of cops that used to go in there and party after hours. There was always one guy big guy sitting at the very front table closest to the stage, and he'd sell Mickeys for $20, just out of a bag, and you would be, and now you're drinking straight whiskey and stuff, buying the Mickeys off this guy.
Because there's no liquor license from 2 to 5 a.m. or in that point, right?
Yeah, I don't think there was. That's correct.
So they're allowed to operate as an after hours club. So then you're buying bootleg Mickeys out of some guy's coat for $20, which was a lot of money in that time, I would imagine.
Yeah. It was a fair amount of money back then, I suppose. It'd probably be like buying a Mickey for 35 now or something.
Yeah.
So the Matador was Friday, Saturday night. Yep.
And were you in at the Matador, especially? I would imagine it might have been a little bit different than the other bars, but were you playing only your material, or were you playing cover songs as well?
Well, covers, but a lot. We could get away with playing a lot of our own stuff there. So we did. Well, you know what? That's a lot of places we played. I threw in a lot of my own songs back then. Now, I didn't have as many as I do now, but we still played "Living It Up" and "Alone Again," and those songs that we had written already. I believe. You know what? Maybe it was a little earlier than "Alone Again" and "Living It Up." I think they might have come a little later, but we did have some originals that we played, but mostly I would say covers. Yeah.
But you say there was jobs and bars where you could play traditional country music still.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's in the 90s.
Yep. In the 90s, there was still work out there. I mean, it's funny that the wage hasn't changed usually. From 40 years ago till now, it's still $100 a night. I mean, I'm not saying every gig, and some bands won't even play for that, and every band's at a different level. But I'm just saying, I usually would get 100 a night if I was doing a solo thing. Maybe 400 with a band, or 350, and split that up between the guys.
Yeah. Wow. And so how did the songwriting come? So you're a pretty young fella, like in your early 20s, and you're out there playing in the bars. You're playing cover tunes, probably the old country songs, and you've got a whole bunch of your own tunes. How did that start for you?
You know what? I just started writing things down on a piece of paper in a little book. Started writing things. It was writing things down in a book on paper, and just like poems, maybe. Hard to say exactly, but once I wrote the first couple of songs, I was hooked. And then it's always amazing that when other people like them too. I remember when I wrote "Living It Up" and we started playing that at Broncos, and the Gladstonians were all hanging out there. And I guess I would play "Living It Up," and they always told me that's a great song, and that, of course, boosts your ego and makes you feel good, and then you continue to write more after that. "Living It Up" was probably one of the earliest songs I did write, though. I probably didn't start writing till 25 or 26 years old or something. So it wasn't like I was writing when I was a teenager or very young, but that came later. And then I hung out with Kim Doolittle for quite a while, and we wrote a couple of songs. So she was an inspiration for songwriting as well. And then I know that, and I'm grateful that you recorded "Living It Up," and so did Sean Barker on his album. And it's just like, wow, that's pretty overwhelming that someone would record a song that you wrote on their album. So it's just awesome.
Well, yeah, man, that song serves me very well, and I still play it more often than I don't in shows, and it's like, it's one that people who come to see me regularly, I would say, expect us to play that one, and it's great. It's a great tune. It's great.
That's awesome, and I appreciate it, man. It's a really good feeling when somebody likes your song enough to record it on their album. So it's definitely much appreciated, and very humbling, that's for sure. So, it's definitely got an upbeat to it, that tune, and the lyrics came pretty quick, I think, as most songs do. Mm-hmm. I usually don't take very long to write a song, and mostly because I'm probably just want to get it done kind of thing, but I want it to be good too, if it can be. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
I don't want to put it down and leave it half done. So I usually try to finish a complete song once I start it, and it goes. It usually doesn't take very long.
That's impressive, man, because I know some people that write great tunes and they labor over them for a long, long time, over every little detail. And sometimes I think that works. And sometimes I think the original idea is maybe the move,
Oh, I agree 100% with that statement, Sean. I think that the first, now you might want to change a couple of words if they're a little corny here and there, but I think the first idea is usually the best. And I don't think people that take a long time to write a song and are looking for perfection, I don't think it really matters that much. Most people, yes, a lot of great songs have great words in them, but a lot of people that are at the bar are dancing to songs for the music, and with there's a lot of songs with great vocals in them, or great words, great metaphors and great words in the songs. But for me, I just remember recording with Angel Ritchie and Bill Ritchie and Doug Duveau, and a lot of times I would just go, no, that's good enough. Doing something else is not going to make any difference. You know what I mean? Kind of, but that's kind of the way I am anyway. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to songwriting anyway, or at least recording songs, that's kind of how I am. I wouldn't say when I'm doing a roof, because that's what I've been doing for 33 years is roofing, that I would say, oh, that's good enough, because it has to be good. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's a different. But when it comes to definitely recording, and definitely the first ideas that pop up and rhythms of the song and whatnot are usually the best.
Where were these tunes coming from? Were you drawing from, what was going on in your life, or what was moving you to write the tunes?
Yeah, some of them definitely are, most of them are definitely things that were going on in my life, people that I've known. And if I had a list of them, I could certainly let you know, tell you exactly what the songs are about. Some of them just come to mind, and they have no meaning at all. They just pop into your head, and they have a good feel and a good rhythm. I usually write all my songs on an acoustic, and they have a good rhythm and a good feel, and the words just come out. There's the odd song, definitely, that is not related to anything in my life. They just come out, but 90% of the songs definitely are related to things that go on in my life. Yes.
A song like Alone Again, I mean, that could be something that's a personal experience, and that's also just like a very classic country music story,
Yeah, that song came from during the middle of a set, sitting out in Randy's van. During the middle of we just did a set. And now we're sitting in his van, and he just all of a sudden started slapping his hands on his legs and said, "Barry, you need to write a song that has this tempo." And he was like, "Dum ka dum ka on his legs." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Okay, man, yeah, sure," because Randy was a big part of Inner City Outlaws and our band, and Randy's. We'll get into this, but Randy's Chef Adam's son. So that's how I met Randy, through Chef and Dennis Brunette and whatnot. But so Alone Again just simply came from Randy saying, "You need to write a song." I went home that night after the gig and wrote the song. We played it the next night, but it wasn't about anything. That was a song that wasn't about anything that was relatable in my life at the time. So
I just think the "You Said Goodbye" and I said "That's Fine" is the greatest.
Sometimes that's the way it is, I guess.
Well, man, I don't know if I sent it to you yet, but like we took a stab at that one on my record that's about to come out, and I got Dennis Conn to play lead guitar on it, because I know that Dennis did some time with you, and I thought that would be the right thing to do.
Man, and that is just, it's so amazing that you did that. I saw some pictures that you sent me of him in the studio, and Boy, what a legend Dennis is,
Oh
man.
man, yeah. He's
Such a sweet, subtle guitar player. You can get these guys that are a million mile an hour fast pickers, and yeah, and Dennis is not one of those guys. He could do it if he wanted to, but he's just sweet and subtle, and can make the guitar sing like a vocal on everything he does. Dennis Conn's amazing.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's like a horn player, like playing really nice lines, like at a very sort of friendly speed. He's not a shredder like a lot of those guys are, but he plays like younger people don't play the guitar like that anymore. And there's no country guitar players that play like that anymore. Like those guys developed a style, I think, by playing 6 nights a week for 50 weeks a year, and sometimes being the only guitar player in the band and having to, compensate for things like that, and therefore there's this unique style that these older guys have. And I love that, man. Dennis and my dad, and there's another fella that lives here in Winnipeg that plays with me sometimes. They're all, in the same age range. And this is the way they play chords and the way they move between them that is unique to their generation.
I'm 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. I remember Mike Burns, boy, that your father I'm speaking of, with the Gladstonians, and he could play anything, and he was just an amazing guitar player and also amazing guy. I remember, and I think Mike came out and did a couple of gigs with us. I think I met Mike through Ralph McDonald, and Ralph, I think he came out and did a couple of gigs with us, Mike, and we loved him from the first note. He was just an amazing guitar player and an amazing guy and a great singer too.
Yeah, he was a really good singer. I agree. So you found him at the Gladstone Hotel going on the Sunday night when they had the Gladstonians jam?
Exactly. Ralph and Mike and Lance Bennett and Letty Anderson. And of course, Ralph McDonald, and just all those guys down there, Frank Leger playing. It was just a treat to go and see them on Sunday. So they were all, professional musicians that had a good time while they were playing.
Well, how did you find all these guys? Like Bill Ritchie did a lot of time with you, and Dennis and Randy Adams. Like, how did you find all these people?
Well, Randy, I did an album with Dennis Brunette in Shag Sound Studios through Jack Boswell, and Chef Adam came. Yep, Jack.
Okay.
Yep, Jack. Actually, what's the word I'm looking for here? He was the guy that I guess paid for it. Is that what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
It was through Jack Boswell, and Chef came in and Chef produced the album. So he was in the studio. So Chef brought his son Randy Adams in to play drums, and that's the first time I met Randy. We did a 10-song. I have 2 originals on it. 10-song country album, me and you and a dog named Boo. I did, which is to me one of the best country songs ever. Just the progression of the music is amazing in it, the chords and whatnot. But I did Ring of Fire. I did a Tom T. Hall song. And I did 2 originals, and that was way back when I was 25 or something, maybe, and Chef Adams produced it. So of course he brought Randy in to play drums on it, and we clicked right away, and he played in the band for 10 years, and was, a partner with me in the band as far as being creative with songs and whatnot. Randy's just an amazing guy.
That's wild. It's like all those guys that had the right-hand man, like Merle with Roy Nichols, or Buck and Don Rich, and Porter Wagner and Buck Trent, and then yours is the drummer. And I think that's super cool and unique. Was that record called The Country Kid?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and that's 1990 is what my research suggested. So you would have been 25.
25 years old.
Was that on Boot Records, or did you do something else for Boot Records?
Oh, so Boot Records was Yuri Krychek. Boot Records actually went to Nashville and played with. Geez, I'm trying to remember these guys' names. I'm looking at their picture in my cabinet right now, but they were very popular back in the day, playing on all a steel player. I have to pick that. I just saw their names the other day too, but it was so long ago. My brain just deceives me. So yeah, I went. I flew down. Actually, I drove down with Terry to Nashville and did a 6-song compilation, 6-song thing. And I wrote The Legend of Dick Nolan is on one side, and No Will to Live was on the other side, which was written by Joey Sloan, and I recorded that. So I recorded 6 songs, but of course, with Yuri Krychek, I only actually got the single. So I have the 45 single of that from back in the day, but it was just absolutely amazing to go down to Nashville and record with these absolutely professional musicians who played on all of the big country stars albums throughout the years. It was just incredible to hear these guys play. Most of them were nailing it first take and stuff. So that was a blast. That was the Boot Records thing. Yeah.
How did they find you? How did Boot Records find you?
Oh, geez. That's a good question. That's a very good question. Just from playing in bars and whatnot, I guess playing in bars. It might have been from Joey Sloan. I just can't remember exactly how they found me to go down and record these songs, but just from being out there and playing. We played almost every weekend, so it was quite a blast.
Did you have a job in those days too, or were you just gigging?
Nope, I had a job. I worked in a vinyl factory making vinyl windows, bay windows, and putting the vinyl in these presses and melting them together to make just vinyl window frames and bay windows. So I did that for a little while, and then the music was on the side.
So I'll tell you, this is good because you can maybe help me figure this guy out a little bit. I told you I was searching for Roy Payne. I also was searching for Jack Boswell for some time, and I found him through his nephew, Russ, who's a bass player. I don't know if you know Russ. He put me in touch, and then I called Jack. This is 2021 maybe. And he was like very, very skeptical about my phone call and very kind of standoffish. And I had it in my mind that, he started Paragon Marathon Records. It was like, that was Roy Payne records on that, and Mickey McGivern and some great records. If they're not ARC records from Toronto, it's Paragon Marathon. So I wanted to talk to Jack. I had it in my head that he was like a passionate country music fan and he would go find the bands and record them. But he kind of just told me that country music was popular and he knew he could make money recording it, so he would just find the bands and record them. So I was like, oh, you're just a businessman. And I was kind of bummed out by that, but his story runs a lot deeper than that, and he did a lot of other stuff with rock and roll music, and I think he took a lot of the money he made making country records and made some pretty influential rock records. So whatever. And he passed away recently. I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know.
Yeah, he just passed away a couple months ago, I think. And yeah, so we didn't really have a successful conversation, but how did he find you?
Yeah, I just don't remember. It was probably through another musician.
Okay, because he told me in the 60s he would just go to the bars, a couple different bars in the week, and if there was a band he thought was pretty good, he would just say, I'll record you. And they would go and do it all in one day on a Sunday.
Yeah, it could have been that. Honestly, I feel terrible not to be able to remember, but it was just so long ago. We're going back now, 25, 20, 30 years ago. So I don't remember what the connection was exactly, but it was probably through other artists, or just like you say, he may have came in and saw me playing somewhere. I'm not sure.
I know that I knew that Chef was brought in to Dennis's studio often. I didn't know that it was from Jack Boswell, but I know he was brought into the studio often to sort of act as quality control, like kind of a producer, but more just just to kind of oversee the session as a respected veteran. And I know Ralph did one with Smiley Bates that Chef sort of ran. So was that his role? He was just kind of like a pseudo producer, or just kind of making sure everything ran?
Yeah, I think that after so many years, we're talking about Chef, correct?
Yeah.
I think that after so many years of playing, and I think a lot of musicians probably do this, so many years of playing the bars and setting up all your equipment, and after a while, it gets, I'm sure Chef played right up to the end, but it just gets a little bit, a little bit crazy when you get up there in age, and maybe you take other avenues. Now, I don't know if you had a deal with Dennis Brunette or for Shag Sound, or if it came through Jack or somebody else. But I think, we all know what a great artist Chef Adams was and how many amazing songs he had. It's funny because I was out west a couple of years ago, and I went to Randy's, his son's place, Randy's, and we actually listened to some Chef Adams and whatnot, and looked at some pictures, and just had a great old night hanging out, because I hadn't seen him for years and years, Randy. But so I think Chef got onto the producing just as, you move on, and it gets a little bit tougher to get out and play all the time. So he was getting out and producing people. Yeah.
Yeah, my understanding is that he did it all, like promoted shows, and he booked bands, and he produced records, and he had his hand in a lot of avenues of the music business.
He absolutely did, and that just shows you how much the music was in his soul. He lived off of that, so it was absolutely amazing what he accomplished. That's for sure.
And you met him that day in the studio, or did you know him before that?
Nope, I met him at the studio.
But you knew who he was.
Yeah, I knew who he was,
right,
but
okay.
I met him at the studio, and I thought it was just awesome to see him and meet him, and more so even to see his son come in and play drums and nail it on every song, which of course we have to listen to now for the rest of our lives. So Chef did a great job on organizing the musicians in the studio. That's what he did, and we were pleased with the outcome.
I'll say, man, Randy Adams' drumming on the Inner City Outlaws album you made at Ralph's place, his drumming on Living It Up and Alone Again and I Cross My Broken Heart, like that's to me is like gold standard country music drumming. Like I send that shit to people, like this is the example of what a country music drummer should sound like, and fucking none of them do. Yep. The Joanna Miller, who plays drums with me here in Winnipeg, she does a fantastic job. Like she does as good as anyone I've heard. But there's something about Randy who had it in his blood, like that really someone that truly loves country music. Like it's perfect country music drumming to me.
I agree. He knew when to come in with the rim shots. He knew how loud the cymbals should be at the end of the hits. He at the end of the shots. And what's fascinating about Randy is he's a rock drummer.
Really?
So he was doing a country session, but he grew up, like, let's face it, he grew up with Chef, so he would have known Chef's drumming, or he would have known Chef's style and country music since he was 3 years old. So and listened to it all his life. So just to sit behind a drum set for him would have been a breeze to play country. But I think he's been in more so hard rock and rock bands than country.
So you were, whatever happened, you found yourself at Shag Studio, which is Dennis Burnett's studio, and Chef and they had a band there for you, or did you have any of your own guys?
No, they had the band. They had the complete band. I just came by myself. Yep.
That's great, man.
Yeah, man.
Did you remember the other players?
I don't. I know there was a guy playing steel dobro and on every song, I think, and it just really sounds amazing what he did. Maybe Frank Leger was playing bass, but I can't say that 100%.
Can you tell me about Dennis Brunette a little bit? Like, I know he had that studio. I know some really great stuff happened there, but I don't really know much about him.
You know what? Dennis is an amazing guy. He's a producer now, and right now he's working. He's going back and taking all the old recordings that he has had from the past and reproducing them to make them sound great. But Dennis, and he's always been in a studio and had his own studio producing albums. But he's also a killer drummer.
Yeah, and he was like active, like playing in bands for years in the bars and stuff in Toronto, right? As a drummer.
Yep, and I believe he still does.
No way.
Yep, I think he still plays with Wolf Milestone, who's a country guy that's still, playing around and whatnot. Yeah, I think Dennis is still out there playing from time to time.
What year, do you remember the year that you went to Ralph's house to do the Inner City Outlaws record?
I believe it was 1990, the Country Kid one. That's what you said, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was 92.
Okay.
Maybe 92. You know what? Let me confirm that for you. But Ralph, holy smokes, this was in Ralph's house. I mean, he had the drums set up downstairs.
Yeah.
So Randy would go down in the basement and play the drums because he had like a drum studio thing set up, a sound studio kind of thing for the drums down in his basement. So Randy would go down there and play while we were playing upstairs, and we'd all have the headsets on, and that's how that went. But Ralph knew how to make things work. He knew how to make all the instruments work good and do things in a really classy way. Ralph McDonald. I mean, like he knows music.
Yes.
You know what I mean? He knows. He's got the know abouts. He's to feel the music and know what's going on. So
he had a pretty advanced setup for someone in their house 30 years ago. I just had this thought literally a few days ago. Like I was like, man, Ralph's setup for like the early 90s was really high quality.
Absolutely, and that's what I mean by he knew what he was doing, right?
Yeah. So who was your core band at that time when you were doing those tunes? Was that Bill Ritchie and Randy Adams?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So a lot of the gigs, I met Bill Ritchie through Dennis Conn because Dennis couldn't make a gig, but he said, call this guy. And I called Bill and he came out, and we were blown away by Bill's ability to sing and play guitar as well. And he just you could play a song that he doesn't know, and halfway through it he knows it. I mean, he was just an incredible musician too, Bill Ritchie. So was his wife, still is, Angel Ritchie. She's an amazing musician too, but that's how I met Bill, through Dennis Conn, and Dennis used to play with us quite a bit. But back in the day as well. So, but just absolutely amazing to play with these musicians, Dennis and Bill, because they were just amazing, and they're both on the Inner City Outlaw album too.
Yeah, is that Bill singing the high harmonies?
It is.
Oh, stunning. I listened to I Crossed My Broken Heart right before I phoned you tonight, and I was like, man, that's a hell of a song. And then, the harmony is real nice in the chorus. That's a great song too, man.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And yeah, Bill and Dennis both did, I believe, sang harmonies on that, and they took turns playing guitars on each and every song on there as well. So, yeah, it was a great time in my life to be hanging out with these guys and recording.
Do you remember how long you were in there? Was it just a couple days, or was this over a longer span of time?
It was over a longer span of time. It was when Ralph had time and I had time. I can't remember exactly how long it took to do it, but it took a little while, maybe a month, maybe.
Okay, and you had like a ton of tunes by that point, it seems like.
Yep, I had a few tunes. Yep,
And you
but by that time,
put the thing out and sell it off the stage. Was what was going on in those days?
that's what we were doing. Put them in stores on consignment and sell them off the stage. Yep, as well.
But
We did that as well.
You're like in that era when you were playing all the time. That's like prime Garth Brooks era.
Yeah, I think I played "Friends in Low Places."
Oh, did you really?
The only Garth Brooks song I played.
I was just
yeah.
gonna say, like, was that the expectation ever that you had to play, the hits of the day, or were you still able to just do your thing?
Yeah, you know what? We always threw in our songs. And I don't know, maybe the country. What am I trying to say here? The country scene is different than the rock scene. I think, but in a way that you can get away with playing your own songs, I think, a lot of times in a country bar, because they're country songs. But if you're a rock band and you're not playing the top rock songs at the time and you're trying to make it in downtown Toronto playing all original rock stuff, I think it's harder to play original rock stuff than it is country stuff, because country songs, I don't know if it makes sense to what I'm saying to you, but country songs are country songs. So you seem to be able to get away with playing your own country music, your own songs that you've written, but we never had a problem. We played them anyway. And a lot of times we got applause for them. So, and people up dancing.
Yeah.
Speaking of people up dancing, we used to play the Lindsay Irish House back in 94, 95. And the Lindsay was the best time, the Lindsay Irish House. They had hotels upstairs, so we go play there Friday, Saturday, and they put us up in the rooms upstairs. But talk about partying all the time. But anyway, we would be setting up on stage on Friday to get going at 7 o'clock to start at 8, and people would be standing on the dance floor waiting for us to play our first song.
Oh man,
that's what it was like back in that day, standing there waiting. You know what I mean?
I do, yeah.
There was lots of fights and always crazy stuff going on, but we certainly had a really good time playing. That's for sure. Back in the day.
So with Randy in your band for that long, you must have gotten to know Chef pretty well.
Yep. I wouldn't say really well. I've seen him a few times and talked to him a few times. He always, no matter what, encouraged all young artists. So Chef was just a great guy and very encouraging amongst his fellow musicians and whatnot. But he had a great style and class about him.
Did you ever get to see him perform live, or was he done?
I think I saw him play at a jamboree once that he got us on, a fairground jamboree, and it was one of our bigger gigs. I think it was during the day, and he set that up for us, and we ended up going, and we played all originals.
That's great. Then that's those old school. They used to do that stuff around there so often. I've taught all the old guys told me that about the jamborees on the Sundays and the big outdoor things and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it was all because of Chef. But Randy was there playing, and I think Bill Ritchie, and we just and and maybe Kevin Lucier on bass. I can't remember, but we were so thrilled to be playing there and doing all originals. And Randy says, "You know what? Even to this day, we nailed it." So I believe Randy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Randy's also, he's like his father. He's got a lot of great qualities about him as far as being very positive when it comes to music, and he's always excited about it. Like, Barry, did you hear this song? Or, Barry, you should write a song like that has this tempo. Like, he's always very positive about music, and it's a pleasure to always be around. And he's also a funny guy. We always have a great time.
And he moved out west, and is that when the band sort of slowed down?
Yeah, the band slowed down. I think I got more into roofing when I got around 30 years old, more into roofing and less playing. I ended up getting married and having a kid, and kind of, I wouldn't say put music to the side, but definitely the live portion of it slowed down. Yes.
You continued to play even with some friends and write songs though, like since then up to now. Is that something you've kept going?
Absolutely. So I've written a bunch of songs, and I hooked back up with Bill Ritchie after not seeing him for 10 years, believe it or not, on Facebook. And I come to find he was living in Oshawa with Angel and his wife, and I hadn't seen him for 10 years. So, and they knew Doug Duveau, and they're like, well, you should come and record some songs at Doug's house. I'm like, okay, but Doug had like the complete studio setup in his basement, like the big board, the whole, the separate drum room. And so I took advantage of that and said, sure, I'll come in. And I started writing songs. Sean, I would write a song on a Saturday because I knew I was going in the studio on a Sunday. I'd pre-book almost every Sunday or every second Sunday. And the Saturday before, I'd write a song and go in and record it, whether it was a good song or not. And that's what we did for quite a while.
Wow, that's a cool approach.
Yeah, just okay. I didn't write it a week before or 3 days before. I waited till the Saturday with my day off, and I'd sit and write a song, and then Sunday go in and record it with those guys. Yep, that happened quite a lot.
Can you still do that? Can you just say, okay, I'm just going to go in the back room and write a song now?
You know what? I hadn't played my guitar for an awful long time. I pick it up every once in a while, play a few chords and put it down. But just 2 mornings ago, I was watching, who's the blues guy with the hat, the bigger young guy? Oh, geez, I was watching a video of Marcus. Is his name Marcus?
Oh, yeah, I know the guy you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, Marcus King.
Yeah, that sounds right.
But anyway, so I just happened to be on Facebook and see a picture or a video of him, and I clicked on it, and I heard him playing a Willie Nelson song, and I went, holy smokes, that's cool. And I went downstairs, got my guitar, went back upstairs, and wrote a song for my daughter. It was done in like 45 minutes.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And you like it, and like it's like you can do that. Write a song that you're cool
now,
with.
When I revisit it, it's complete right now, but when I revisit it, I might change a couple of words or put the first verse where the third verse is and the third, but it's a complete song. Yes.
Man, I love to hear that. I wish I heard that more. I think that I don't write a ton of tunes and I never have, but my better ones all happened fast, like faster than the maybe ones that aren't as strong.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, it's only because I want to get them done. Like, not to rush them, but I don't want to leave a song half finished. Have I before? Yes, but I don't like it. So I like to, there's just something in me that wants to get the darn thing finished and completed so that I know I have a song, kind of thing,
And these days, are you still listening to George Jones and Merle Haggard, or are you listening to new music too?
No, still, yeah, I listen to, I'm a rock guy. I like listening to rock, but country music's in my soul. And, my wife has a CD player in her car, if we're going on a trip, it would always be a George Jones or Dwight Yoakam, DVD CD or Merle Haggard. And my dad's got a ton of them here. He lives with us, and he's got a ton of CDs of old country stuff. So definitely still listen to country music, yeah.
That's great, man. It's so great to talk to you, Barry. It's great. It's amazing to talk to someone that loves the country music as much as I do, or more,
Yeah, man, and I've seen a lot of your videos and whatnot, and we all us older guys appreciate you keeping that stuff alive, man, because there really is some good feelings in country music. Good, just like I said earlier, the tempos and the musicians are all so amazing. And also, Sean, thank you so much. I think this is the second song that you recorded of mine
It is
coming out on your new album, brother. And I'm humbled. Thank you so much.
Oh man, you're welcome, and thank you for the music. I'll send you that, and I'll send you the whole record, like you listen to right now, and then when I get vinyl in a few weeks here, I'll be sure. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed my chat today with Barry Smith. Thank you, Barry, for taking the time to join me on the show and sharing your story in country music. I recorded Living It Up on my 2013 record, Cold Beans and Broken Eggs, and I recorded Alone Again on my new record, Lost Country, which came out back in October. Thank you, Barry, for your support in me singing and recording your songs. Pleasure to be out there on the road singing these lost country classics. Music on the program today, courtesy of Sean Burns and Lost Country, The Divorcees, and Skinny Dick. Our logo was created by Boots Graham, Central Alberta honky tonker. From local legends to regional stars to the cream of the Canadian crop, you're going to find it all here on the Northern Report. Thanks for tuning in, friends. Have a great week. Hey, what do you got for us?
If you're trying to break my heart, you've only got about a boat length to go.